also, and then we're done. Almost done with Unit 5. The keyword static is important. All right, so the keyword static implies that a method or a variable belongs to the class as a whole rather than to individual objects. So we've never done a static variable in this course. So I'll show you how to do that today. And you need to do that for the Day 39 student programming task, which we'll be doing in just a sec. So one way it could be useful is if you had, say you had a store and you were selling a bunch of things in the store and your objects were these things, you might need each object to know the tax rate, or if it was a sale, what the current sale is, like, oh, everything's 20% off. That could be a variable in the class, and all the objects could see what the current tax rate is or what the current discount is going to be, so they could use it when they give their price to someone. Another way, and the way that we'll use it more often, is to give each object a unique ID number. And so the idea for that is you have a static variable that is sort of behind the scenes, keeping track of what the next ID number is going to be. And then each object has its own ID number that gets assigned in the constructor. So I'll show you this after everyone's had a chance to write this down. Let me see what's on my clipboard. I'll go back. Sorry. So let's talk. If you want to have a unique ID number for objects in a class, whether this is like each student gets a student ID number, or books in a database of books, every book has a different unique tracking number. You need two variables. A static variable that typically serves as the next ID number, and then a regular private variable that stores each object's ID number. And that way, every time we create a new object, The class itself is keeping track of what the next ID number is, and it goes ahead and assigns it. And then each object just knows their own ID number. They don't really worry about everybody else. So if you see the request for a unique ID number, you got to know that you're going to need to make two variables to handle that. One is sort of the behind the scenes next number, and the other one is what, who's storing the unique number. So we're going to go back here to notes. I've got I wrote a class called book. So check this out. We have private static int next ID equals 1001. So that's my hidden static variable. All objects in the book class can get a hold of that variable and change it because it's available to all of them. And for all of them, it's 1001. Okay? But then I made a private int called ID. That's for each book. And we don't put a number into it. We're going to do that later. And then we have the title of the book because it seemed weird to make a book object if we weren't storing at least the title. I was trying to keep it simple. So then right here, when we're creating a new book, we send over the title. And it says title equals T. And then check this out. I'm saying ID equals next ID. And then I'm adding 1 to the next ID value so that it really is ready to be the next ID. If I didn't add 1 to it, all the books would end up being ID 1001. And then we have a toString that returns just the ID number and the title. So up here, I'm going to say book A equals new book. I love Fridays. And we're going to make another book called I Don't Love Mondays. That's going to be book B. If we run this, we get ID number is 1001, I love Fridays, and ID number 1002, I don't love Mondays. And it would just go on from there. We could create more. So what's happening, every time we create a book, the constructor is called right here. And we set the title to the title. That's just like we've been doing all along. Then we set the private book. Each book has its own private integer variable called ID. We set that to the variable that they all share that's called next ID. And then we add 1 to next ID, so it really is like behind the scenes ready to be the next ID. And you could add the 1 ahead of time if you wanted, but I wanted to have it start at 1001. If you wanted to add it, you could put this plus line beforehand and just start this at a different number. Anyway, that's how a static variable works. You'd want to maybe copy down this constructor. Or this declaration right here up through the constructor. That's the toString is nothing special. But, questions? So I'm going to be having you code this in just a sec for a student class. It's not too hard. I got one more something to say about static things in just a sec before we're done here. Can we go? All right, so the last thing is static methods. We've used a static method all along, public static void main. So you have used static methods. Now notice whenever we run a program that has a main method in it, you don't have to somewhere else say, hey, something equals a new object. Like you can run the main method in a class without creating, you don't have to say book b equals new book and then say book.main or something. Like main method belongs to the whole class it's in. It just there's just one of them sitting there and it can do things inside of a class. That's where we've been seeing static methods all along. This part, I've never seen it show up on the AP test in particular, so we're not going to dwell on it right now. I think we'll work on it maybe a little more later in the year, but I want to tell you 4 things about static methods. So just like variables, static methods belong to the class, not to specific objects. And static methods cannot change or access instance variables in objects. You know, the ones that we declare at the top of a class. It cannot change or access the non-static variables in the class. Static methods can change static variables in a class. And lastly, okay, so I know these are sort of probably a little spooky or confusing, but I'd like you to write it down. And I'm not going to test you on these specific things, but you'll run into it over time. And you may have already run into it where you tried to write a method and you tried to compile and it said static method cannot be accessed in this context or something like that. And that's, yeah. Sure.
So a static method cannot see or modify regular variables at all.
Those private class variables, yeah. And it's fine. We won't need it to, you know. Oh, is that one of the ones? Good. Yeah. Yeah. You were just ahead of us. All right, I'm going to